Yeah, I totally agree. That's, I think one thing that's such an important piece that not you're not going to please everyone. I had a conversation with somebody this weekend. They said something that evidently rubbed somebody the wrong way that didn't necessarily resonate with me in that way, right? And he's like, and he was, I don't know what I said or did, right? And I said, well, you know what? Sometimes you're just going to rub somebody the wrong way just in the words that you say or how you say something, right? Words have power and have different meanings to different people in different ways. And, you know, I think different folks are not gonna not gonna feel you. It just for different
Yeah.
reasons. Maybe they don't like the shirt that you have, right? Or whatever else it is. If they have a thing against people with green eyes. I don't know, right? Whatever it is. So and I've learned that just over the time. There's a group of 35 people, there's going to one person that's gonna be like, meh, right? At least one, right? But if there's that one
Yeah.
person, they're like, okay, right? What can I what did I take from this, right? Tiff
Hmm.
got an email last week from somebody that we both have worked with in a class, and she was talking about how impactful our conversations have been with her, and she's taken it to her school and has told people, hey, listen to the podcast. These folks, they're real, they're genuine, and then they really have some good insights. And so it was those are the things that really make you feel like you're in the right place. And it's just one person. It doesn't necessarily have to
Yeah.
be the entire crowd lifting you up and carrying you out of the building, saying, "Oh my God, you're the greatest thing ever," right? Because how often does that happen?
Right.
You're not lifting my big ass up, so But I really do think, as much as it's the words and how much you know, it's also how much you care, right? People don't buy what you do; they buy why you do it, right? And people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And I think, like you mentioned, the idea of being honest and being genuine and having that energy and passion for what we do is so important. Whenever I'm doing a speaking engagement, even if it's something that maybe I haven't necessarily done specifically, I try to find the connection into how I feel about it or what I'm thinking. And that gives me the energy and the passion to be able to move forward, in that positive space
Right.
where I'm like, okay, so, I'm speaking to a bunch of experts in this field, and, they have a lot more experience, but they're not here for me to teach them, you know, a new way of doing things as much as they're here for me to help them process things and to have conversations.
Right.
So where do I come in as a subject matter expert if that's the need? Where do I come in as someone to facilitate growth and development and critical thinking, which
Mm.
that's the need as well, right? So, but just being genuine and honest about that idea of growth and learning, regardless of the venue, people will pick up on that. People will recognize your energy and know that you're you are honestly trying to connect and help them to connect. And people will give you the benefit of the doubt in that sense. So I always try to come with the energy, right? Even if I'm nervous, and I'll be nervous tomorrow in my speaking engagement, or in my class, because it's the first time I've taught this class. I'm using, somebody else's materials along with some of my materials, and so I worry about the pace, right? Making sure the
Mhm.
activities are good. And but I know the class is good because it's still there. It's part of the curriculum. It's
Right.
been, recycled over the years as a positive, effective way of doing things. And so I know the content works. How do I make sure that people get the most out of the information and the experience? And so, just give yourself that benefit, the benefit of the doubt. Someone asked you to do something. There's a reason why they asked you to do it. Oh, wow, these people have more experience than me. Yeah, but there's also a reason why they ask you to stand up in front of them, right? So connect with that. And if it's energy and passion, if that's
Yeah.
the only two things you have going for you, roll with those.
Hmm. Hmm. I agree. Yeah, that email that we got from them, was definitely it was great. And what I loved is they asked, "Do you remember me?" And I'm like, "Yes, I remember you. Like I literally was just thinking about you because when I got to interact with that person from our class, they were just finishing up their degree and they were leaving the county and they were off to go do something else. And so I really just thought about them and was hoping that they were doing well. And I swear, then that email showed up, and I thought, "Gosh, what a gift! What a gift!" And
Yeah.
on it, and can I just share with you really fast, right along this same conversation, that's where the name Giving the Gift coaching.com came from. When I was looking for a business name, um, I wanted something that was in line with like who I am, and again, I want it to be authentic. I want it to be genuine. And I wanted the name Shifts and Giggles. Shifts and Giggles, because coaching is all about shifting, right? And so I thought that's perfect for like who I am, because I tend to be like lighthearted. People say I'm funny. And so I wanted it to be a bit humorous, but unfortunately the name was already taken. And so um I don't know if you ever got to meet Lorraine Fox. Did you? She was a UC Davis trainer back in the
Yeah.
days. She's one of the reasons that I'm a trainer today, is that I just her presence, the way that she commanded respect and was so loving and so direct, like she's just one of my favorites. And so I love it. The 10 Days of It's one of my most read articles. And by the way, she has written a book for anybody who's interested. Lorraine Fox, Dr. Lorraine Fox. Let me put some respect on her name. Dr. Lorraine Fox wrote a book called Compassionate Caring, and it's really just a compilation of all of her published works in a book. And it's really great for people who work in like therapeutic homes, what we used to know as group homes, because that was her background. But it's full of love and compassion and so many things. But going back to the Giving the Gift, one of her quotes from that article that I love so much, she says, "Sometimes you have to keep giving the gift even if it remains unopened." And that was just so powerful for me. Back to being a caseworker, like you give so much to try to improve people's lives, and sometimes they're not, it's not the time for them, right? Sometimes they're dealing with maybe historical trauma of dealing with the system, or they're not open to change, or whatever the complexity is of humanity. But you get frustrated, right, as a helper, when you're doing all of this work to try to help and it's not moving people. You feel like, what am I doing? Why am I doing this? And so you can become jaded. And so that phrase, "you give the gift even if it remains unopened," was so meaningful for me, because I don't have to wait for somebody else. Like, I'm going to do the good things because it's the gift I'm giving you. What you do with it is up to you, right? And we don't have to love every gift we receive. We can still be gracious. And so it was always a reminder for me that I need to keep doing the things I do, even if that gift remains unopened. I'm not doing it for the, I don't need the validation necessarily. I'm doing it. I'm giving that gift because it's the right thing to do, right? I'm giving that gift because I have good intentions and I'm trying to change the world. And so that doesn't it's not a tit for tat relationship, right?
Yeah.
It's not a tit for tat relationship at all. And that's where I really kind of like live that philosophy. I want to keep giving the gift. I'm going to give kindness, even if you're not kind to me back, right? I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt, even if you don't give me the benefit of the doubt. This doesn't mean, by the way, that I'm not going to hold you accountable after the fact, right? We're still going to have a conversation. We're still going to like figure this out. It's not just going to be a sweep it under the rug and let's move on. There's got to be like that moment of reality. but I'm still going to give you that gift of whatever it is that we need in that moment. And I do it for myself. I do it for the other person as well, but I do it more for me because I don't want to be one of those people who preach kindness and joy and compassion and all of these things that I talk about if I don't live that myself. And so I am always going to give that gift. And and if you choose to give me the gift back, then we're cool. Um, but I'll also get your ass together, if it's impacting others in a negative way, or if it's like impacting our ability. I will also give you the gift of the truth from my perspective, right? Because the truth is just whoever's giving the truth. But I also am not going to withhold things that can help you grow, if you need to hear them. And so that's a gift as well. And by the way, that this is one of the reasons that I like appreciate negative feedback as much as I do positive feedback. To me, that's a gift as well. When people can come and share with you, like, this didn't sit right with me when you said that, that's also a gift that I'm willing to receive because it helps me grow. Um, and and I always think about the courage that it takes for people to come and tell you the truth, right? Because it's really easy. For example, it's really easy if I go to one of your talks, Carl, and I'm in the audience, and at the end they give me an evaluation, an anonymous evaluation, and I go, Carl sucks. He's got hair like Gumby. You said that. I didn't say that. Or just like tear you apart on this anonymous evaluation. But it's much different for me to come to you and say, Carl, during this part of your speech, you said this, and this is how it resonated with me. I think that's so much more of a powerful gift because I'm courageous enough to come and tell you the truth and give you a chance to like receive it. And so that's kind of like the mentality behind the giving the gift coaching is, you give yourself the gift of clarity, you give yourself the gift of being open, you give yourself the gift of working out and thinking broadly about your issues versus just getting stuck in these patterns. And to me, that applies to coaching. It applies to speaking. It applies to even the way we engage with families and human services. Is that um, there has to be like this maybe non-expectation of reciprocity for like your conversations. Like, I'm giving you this gift, but I'm expecting nothing from you in return. But I'm going to do it because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I'm all over the place right now on this.
No.
I think I'm thinking out loud about like how I feel about it. But I don't know. I think like keynote speeches, all of this is a gift that we give to the audiences, and they get to decide what they do with it. Um, but the beautiful thing is, if it sits well with people, you get hired for more stuff. And if they don't enjoy it, you just don't go to work. That's
Yeah.
kind of like the gift that kind of keeps on giving. If you do it well, people will seek you out. And if you don't do it well, then you make a podcast, huh, Carl?
No, as long as if you need to hear yourself talk, that's always a great place to be, right? But yeah, no, I hear you.
Just make a podcast.
It's so true. You know, those who can do and those who can't podcast. No, I'm just kidding. But that's what you're talking about.
Exactly.
Just,
Uh,
just being yourself, remaining yourself, right? And not letting anybody else
right.
control your image of yourself. And that's a hard thing to do for a lot of us. And a lot of us have to grow into that, right? And there's something, I when I think about that, it's really important. I can't control the actions of other people, but I can control how I respond to those actions of other people,
Right.
right? And
Right.
so, who do I want to be? And am I being that person in this moment? And it's easy to say, well, this person made me do it. I mean, I've been at jobs where, the people just have not been the best, right? But at the same time, does that mean that I'm going to go down to their level? I don't want to use, when they go low, we go high. But at the end of the day,
Right.
who is it that you want to be? And it doesn't have to be a response to those people. I mean, think about all the customers we've had, all the clients we've had that have been rude or disrespectful or cussed us out, and with those emotional responses. And rather than assigning blame, well, what's wrong with them? How dare they talk to me? Don't they know I'm here to help them? Which is the easiest way to go because that's we see in our emotions. It's just like we're trauma informed, right? Rather than what's wrong with them, what's going on with them, right? Because that's not how people regularly want to act with each other, right? I truly believe that. I just have that belief that most people want to be treated in a specific way and want to treat others in a specific way, right? I think that treat others how you want to be treated. It's a great lesson to teach kids, right?
Yeah.
Um, but if you've been traumatized as a kid or if you were taught, this is what we see with leadership. Right? Hey, my boss never talked to me and had me regular meetings. For me, it was no news was good news, right? We talked about that in the last couple episodes. But if we know that the research is telling us that the more interactions we have, positive interactions that don't have to be about work, they can just be about life, the more people connect with us, the more harder they work for us, right? And the more that they're willing to do what we ask them to do because they know that we care about them. People don't know don't care about how much you know until they know how much you care. And so recognizing somebody's having a bad day does not give me license to get into the bad day with them. In fact, how do I help them to get past that bad day, to get back to them being the person that inherently they probably want to be, which means not fighting fire with fire, right? I mean, and I can be as petty as anyone else, but just thinking about the idea of what is that going to what is that going to provide me and what is that going to cost me in terms of when I look in the mirror, how am I going to feel about the actions that I just took or the words that I just said? Am I going to feel better? Is it going to make me a better person? And if it's not, kick that shit to the curb, man. We don't need that. We got enough of that in life. We got people in leadership in our country that are making policies based off of vendettas, right? And it's like, you know, I don't have any vendettas. Hey, if you did something wrong to me, maybe just I won't interact with you anymore. Or if I do interact with you, then we're gonna have a conversation about it, right? But I'm not gonna there's not gonna be an act of reciprocity, right? It's
Mhm.
just like that old thing. When I lend money, I don't expect it back. And if I don't get
Right.
it back, I'm not gonna hold you. I'm not gonna, keep it personal, but I will if they ask, hey, can I borrow some more money? I can't because you didn't pay me back the last time, right?
Yeah.
So that's who I want to be. I want to be someone who is comfortable with myself and also respects my boundaries so that other people understand this is who I want to be and this is who I try to be on a regular basis. I try my hardest not to be petty, not to be
Mhm.
emotional, not to hurt people's feelings. I like to think I'm more successful than I'm not, but I also have those times where it gets the best of me. Right? We're human beings. And we get to learn and move forward.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just such a thing. I think because I haven't been around people a lot recently, but I have all of these engagements coming up and um like right now I've been working on one for a keynote that I'm doing around like leadership from any seat and just the power of kindness and positivity. And in doing like research, I always try to look for like the science behind things and what evidence do we have and what do the psychologists say and um, putting all of this together, it really just comes down to the fact that it's like a choice that you have to make. And some days the choice is easier than others. And like really practicing like things that keep you well, things that keep you emotionally well, and listening to your body and listening to your mind and listening to your friends and the people who love you who are saying things like, you sure you don't need a break? um, like this morning, so we have like very different routines in these different houses. And here in California, we have a yard. The back door is always open. This is not an invitation to burglars, by the way. But our dog, like he can go out in the yard and use the facilities. Or we have a pool, a Doughboy pool, above ground pool that he likes to go up to the top of the stairs and look around and see what's happening in the neighborhood. And so when we're here, we don't usually walk him. And we don't walk him in our neighborhood because there's always a lot of stray dogs, and he's very dog skittish, the word. He's not dog friendly, and he gets a little anxious when other dogs are around. And again, there's almost always loose dogs running around here. So we don't walk him around our neighborhood very often, but he gets his exercise. We play with him in the yard, whatever. Uh, in Mexico, we don't have a yard that we can let him out to relieve himself. And so every time he's got to go potty, we take him for a walk. And we have a routine. Like first thing in the morning, we take him outside, take him for a little walk, a potty break. And then, before it gets too hot, we take him for one. And it's funny because he even knows, like when the sun is setting, it's usually around like 6:45. We take him for a really long walk to kind of like let him get his energy out and exercise and all the things that dogs need to do. Well, this dog, he we're back home in California, and his routine is off. And so he has been super moody and emotional, like super moody and emotional. And we were like, what's wrong with him? Is he sick? Does he not feel good? What's his problem? Well, he hasn't been getting his walks. So last night we took him out for a long walk, and he was so happy. Like as soon as we opened the front door, he like booked it, like just was so excited to be out. So this morning when I got up, I thought I'm going to take him for a little walk. And then he reminded me why we don't take him on walks here. Because last night he was on his best behavior. This morning he's 10 years old, so please nobody come and say you need to train your dog better. He is 10 years old, and this is who he is. But now he remembered all of the dogs in this neighborhood that he wanted to go bark at through the fence. He remembered
Oh,
where all his friends were at. And so he was yanking and pulling and zigzagging and all the stuff. And so I came home very, very frustrated. And I shared with my husband because usually we will either one of us or the other. We don't usually walk the dogs together unless we're both not busy. And he was busy this morning, so I took the dog. So nonetheless, I came home and I was irritated and I was frustrated. And I'm like, your dog, because it's his dog now when he's in trouble. Your damn dog was trying to kill a neighbor's pug and freaking pulled me across the street. My hand hurts from the damn leash because he wouldn't listen. And now I remember why we don't walk him here. And so then I make coffee and I'm like, here. And he's like, dang, why are you mad at me? And I said, I'm not mad at you. And I go, I'm just frustrated because of the dog. And he's like, yeah, but why do I gotta pay the price for it? And that's like, to me, that's like giving the gift. And that's the love of, you're frustrated and you don't have to be mean to me about it. And it
yeah.
was like a good reminder for me. And I said, okay. And I took a deep breath and I like let go of some of that negative energy because I was frustrated. And I went and handed him a piece of banana bread. And I said, here you go, sweetheart. Do you want some banana bread to go with your coffee? He's like, that's much, much better. So that is where I think the intentionality of like walking the walk. Like I'm a human being and I get frustrated and I am annoyed and I have my knee-jerk reactions and my tones. I'm not perfect. I'm a regular old person. But in those moments, like where do we have people that care about us enough that will say, I know you're frustrated, but you don't get to be nasty to me, right? And it wasn't with like blame or shame or any kind of like trying to make me feel bad. It was just an awareness of I didn't drag you around the neighborhood. You don't have to be rude to me. And it's true, but this is like the where I'm going with this is like in our work lives we do get frustrated, right? We don't have enough resources. We don't always have enough time. We have compliance things we have to meet, and there's all of these moving parts, and we carry that with us, whether we know it or not. I obviously wasn't frustrated with my husband. I was just frustrated with the dog, but he's the one that bore the brunt of that emotion, even though he didn't cause it. And so, um, in life, we do this from time to time. We carry that energy with us. We unload it on the wrong place, or the right place, whatever you want to think, however you want to think about it. But how quickly can we be honest and recover from it? And sometimes that requires, again, that tell me the truth. You're coming in hot, Carl. You know, what's going on with you versus how dare you talk to me like that, right? Or
Yeah.
watch your
Yeah.
mouth, watch your mouth,
Yeah.
right? Remember who you're talking to. I too, by the way, can be petty. Petty LaBelle, Tom Petty. I mean, you can name them. I think of evil thoughts all of the time on how to ruin lives. You know what I mean? In
Yeah.
very like non-hurtful ways, but I can come up with a revenge plan like no other. I'm never going to follow through on them, but petty is not what I want to be known for. Um, and so I have to be thoughtful about that in the way that I respond to things. And again, we're humans, we're going to get it wrong. But like James Clear says, your behaviors are a vote for who you are. And you just have to have more votes in one direction than the other. And I keep that in mind. Like I don't have to be perfect. I just have to make sure I'm choosing that kindness, compassion, and joy and forgiveness more often than I'm choosing violence.
Yeah.
But I can
Yeah.
still choose violence from time to time. I still can. I have that option. But if I'm really looking at this is who I am, then I have to live authentically in that way and just vote for that more often.
Yeah. And sometimes living authentically is recognizing this is how most people have seen me respond to these things. How do I want to respond to
Right.
these things? And how do I
Right.
make that an intentional act of recognizing that I want to go from here to here? And so it's not easy, right? What's wrong with people is our brain trying to keep us safe and recognize who we should engage with and who we shouldn't. And going from what's wrong with them to what happened to them is an intentional thought of this person is talking to me in a way that they haven't talked to me before. I don't let anybody talk to me in this way, you know. So, and they don't usually come at me like that. So, what is the issue? That's something when I teach a lot of hostility and violence, right? And the idea of rational detachment. This person's upset. Why are they upset? Did I do something to cause them to be upset? If I did, apologize. If not, they're not mad at me. If I was in the bathroom and
Right.
someone else came, was at the front desk when they came in, they'd be yelling at them. So it's not personal, even though we want to take it personal, right? So yeah, you're so
Right.
right, right? And I mean, if we want to take it personal, we can all stay personal. We can all stay in our corners. And when we come out of the corners, we're coming out blazing and ready to fight. And driving our trucks real loud and flying our flags real loud and screaming and hollering and being rude in public and just being just in a
Right.
lack of civility in a civilized society, right? So, but there's one thing I wanted to ask you, getting back to the public speaking. Just one of the things
Yeah.
I hear a lot with people are, where do I start? How do I, okay, I know what I need to do. And once I get started, once I get the ball rolling, I'm fine. But how do I create that connection? Or how do I just even start something? How do I initiate, let alone a keynote, a conversation? What are your tips for that?
I think it's important to start with a connection in some way, shape, or form. So I'm a huge fan of storytelling to start like a conversation. I'm a huge fan of like sharing maybe some data or statistics on why this important is relevant. Or sometimes I like to start with just a question to the audience to help them think about their connection to the topic. So, like a couple of examples here would be when I do my class on presentations, I start with a story about the first time I taught that class, where it was like a series of unfortunate events where there was no hot water at my hotel. I forgot my shoes in the back seat of the car, with the car was not there anymore, and my Uber couldn't find me, and I ended up showing up late to my first class on presentations. And so um, I'm never late, by the way, anymore. It just, again, series of unfortunate events. And I show up to this training in Birkenstocks because that's what I had. Uh, and I just make a joke. Hey, everybody, first tip for great presentations, show up on time and have appropriate footwear. And then we all just kind of laughed about it because I showed up late in Birkenstocks and then said, will you all give me like 5 minutes or so to get set up and get ready? And they were kind. So like showing like my vulnerability through storytelling to say you can mess up and it still can turn out just fine. So I love good storytelling. Something that will get people connected, laugh, realize you're not here to preach at them. Data, like for example, if I'm, doing a talk on stress, I might be like, 89% of people have experienced this, 92% of people have reported this, like making it important. Um, or I like to have a question again where it relates to the topic. So if we're doing um, a de-escalation talk, I might start with, what was the last negative experience that you had with a client and how did you handle it? And then let them share their stories or think about their connection to that topic. And so this is all, again, it depends on what the topic is and how big my audience is and how much time I have. But I think when you can get people connected right away and grab their attention and let them know that this talk is going to be meaningful for them, then they will listen to the rest of what you have to say. Um, I'm not like, for example, I hate my worst part, and it's almost necessary in some of the venues that we have. I'm not a huge fan of like the introduction. Like, oh, my name's Tiffany, and I've been doing this for 20 years, and I've been doing this, and this is my background, and this is my expertise, and this, and I do that. I freaking hate. It makes me so uncomfortable, but I also know that it's important for the audience to like know who you are and why you're there. Um, but I don't think it's always a great way of opening it up. So a lot of times when I do it, I keep that super short and then make some connection to the topic, right? So that's like usually like the way I start. I really just think about like what if I was sitting in that audience and someone was asking me to listen to them for 2 hours or 6 hours or 15 minutes, like what would get my attention? And then I go from there. Like, what about you, Carl? What are your go-to approaches?
Oh, well, I have a spiel. If I have not
Mm-hmm.
met you yet, you're probably going to hear, and it's not a canned spiel, but it is something that I'm comfortable enough to say where I don't have to memorize it. And I just,
Mm-hmm.
like you said, I do my introduction, who I am. I hate when there's bios, right? When people read my bio, I feel like I'm melting on the stage, right? Because people are looking at me like, really? You did this, you did that, right? So, but I do let people know, what my experience is, how long I've been doing this, right? Because, those people who want that intellectual credibility, that's what they're looking for. Okay, this person is worth my time. They're not just
Mm-hmm.
here because there's some failed actor who, learned how to public speak, right? And so,
Right.
um,
Right.
yeah, so but no, look, I've done your job or something similar, right? And so I'd let them know I worked in Kern County. I was a case manager, then I was a supervisor, supervised my old unit. And, depending on the venue or my management experience, my first job and how I did that, my first management job, I tell people how I got the job with the county. It was a hookup. Like I said, my friend, introduced me to his boss. That's super relatable, isn't it? Right? I ask people, how many people
Yeah.
here, got kind of fell into a job. And I said, you don't have to raise your hand if you don't want to get in trouble if your boss is here, right? Just those little things like that create a sense of relief and relatability. This person who is standing up in front of me that I'm supposed to be putting on a pedestal is stepping off the pedestal and saying, I'm just like you guys. This is my job as opposed to what you all are doing. And I have a deep respect for what it is that you do, right? So I have that, and I try to keep it funny and light, but it's a way to help with that intellectual credibility, and at the same time create that relatability that those folks who want to know that you want to connect with them, can have. So I have that. I have to. Being an introvert, I've always had a hard time initiating conversation. I just had that conversation with a friend um, that I'm in the band with, and he said, have you always been, just, you know, charismatic? And as a kid, did you have all that? I said, no, I grew up the fat kid, right? I said, the fat kid with green eyes, right? So I used to have pretty girls come up to me in the middle of the mall saying, "Oh, you have the most pretty eyes," and then walk away. Hated it, right? And then as I matured and grew into myself, I still had a hard time initiating conversation. And I used to think it's just because I'm shy or whatever, but it's part of being an introvert. You don't always know how to have start that conversation, right? Extroverts will walk into an elevator with somebody else and say, "Oh, wow, that's a tall, or this elevator's fast," or whatever else it is. "Oh, what floor are you going to?" Or and I'm sitting there like, let me get to the fifth floor, right, because I don't know what to say. And so I've learned to find those things. If you're going to, I've been enough places now where when I go up to the Del Norte in Crescent City, "Oh yeah, I stayed, I stayed here. I used to stay at the haunted place, but I don't do that anymore." Or you know what? There used to be that Chinese food place next to the movie theater, and that just, oh wow, okay, so this person is not just doing something, even if it's a structured piece of what I'm going to do, it sounds
Mhm.
more personable, right? So I try to
Yeah.
find those connections, with people right off the bat. But like I said, it's I do plan to do that. And I let people know, if you're having a hard time wondering how to initiate a conversation to start with the keynote, plan it out, write it out. I mean, you can walk into a room because you're Tiff and can start a conversation, and people will, you'll feel that connection, right? And I've learned to do that too, but that's something that, like tonight, I'm going to spend 2 hours going over the content, even though I've spent a whole bunch of time going over it already, right? And so just to make sure that's part of my process, to make sure that I'm comfortable with it, so that when I get in front of people and the nerves come up, I have this written. I don't even look at the slides sometimes. I just know that they're written in case I need them, right? And sometimes
Mhm.
if I haven't done a class in a while, I'll print it out and just write video or break or 10 minutes, right? Just in
Mhm.
terms of the conversation we're going to have, just so my brain knows you're in a good place, right? You're on the right track. Don't forget this. Because if I get nervous or if I get excited, sometimes I'll miss the video or I'll miss the story that I want to tell or I'll miss the activity. And so having that structure for folks who are introverted, or maybe are real nervous, because some folks, maybe you're not introverted, maybe you're extroverted, and when you are in public, situations, you ramble, right? And so
Yeah.
how do you keep that, right? You keep that focus. Like I said, going from 55 pages till now, when I teach a class on case management, it's maybe 10 pages, and they're all things that you write, right? But most of it's on the slides, and my slides are minimal, right? They're bullets. They're not reading off the slides. Oh my God. I mean, how exciting is it to have a public speaker who's reading off the slide stuff? Does that really
Don't
float
even
your
get me
boat?
started. That's my biggest pet peeve. That do you know what that if you're gonna read to me from your PowerPoint, that is a higher trigger for me than calling me a rock star. And I always say I know how to read all by myself. And so if the goal was for me to read your slides, like you could have given me the slideshow and I could have read it myself. But yeah, don't if and can I say and I want to also say, as much as it's a trigger for me, a lot of people who are inexperienced with public speaking, or it's not something that they do often, that the slides become a crutch to keep them on track. And I don't want anybody to feel shame, because I used to do the same. Can I be
Mhm.
honest? When I first started, before I could like find my style and find my voice and find my confidence, it was really easy, especially when you're talking about real technical information, to make sure you stick to your script and make sure you stick to your um, to whatever it is on the slide. But it doesn't usually connect with audiences. So the more that you can get, if the more you're able to just speak genuinely and freely, you have a few bullet points, have a few like key concepts, but talk about them naturally. It's so much easier for you and for your audience.
I lost.
People to have a resource.
Well, I lost your audio for a sec.
Oh,
Oh, but you're back now. Okay.
am I back?
Yeah. But
It might be my internet because my thing keeps spinning.
yeah. Okay. Cool. Mine's yeah. It's a Monday and Fridays. Always some type of connection foolishness. It happens. But yeah.
Always.
So, all right. So yeah, it's just whatever works for you. But if you're having, just make sure that you're genuine, you're interested, you're excited. You can let people know you're nervous, right? Not everybody.
Hmm.
It's not a natural act for people to get up in front of 500 people, right? It takes some courage, takes some, and like you said, if you walk into it with a little bit of stage fright or a little bit of what am I doing here? Am I, you know, why did they ask me to do this? The more that you are, feeling like you're on the right track, the more confident you're going to be, So yeah, Tiff, it's now time for our top five.
Oh, did we even think of one today? Do you have
I
one? Because
did,
I don't have one.
I did,
I'm
I did.
unprepared for the top five.
That's all right. It came to me as we were talking. So
Oh,
our top five. Who are your top five public speakers?
ooh, this is hard because I I love Cy Wakeman, although I will say I haven't listened to a lot of her newer stuff, because she's got a very strong brand, and she's got her few key points and she's repeating her key points over and over again. So I love her message. I've just heard it. And so I don't really follow her new stuff, but her old stuff is really, really great. Um, Brene Brown, of course, is one of my faves. I love to hear Brene Brown as a public speaker. She is always very relatable and interesting and vulnerable, and so I really enjoy her because I feel you even if um, you don't she doesn't know who you are, you feel like you're having a personal conversation, even if she's talking to 10,000 people. So I love Brene Brown. Someone once told me, like, I like listening to you. It reminds me of Brene Brown, and I thought that was the biggest compliment in the whole wide universe. I'm gonna go back to my homegirl, Lorraine Fox, Dr. Lorraine Fox, who's retired now, but I only got the pleasure of going to her seminars maybe two or three times. I did watch a video of one of her keynotes that I don't even know how I got jumped into that video loop, but this was back in VHS and floppy disks. But she's a very compelling speaker. And so I'm going to go with Miss Dr. Lorraine Fox. She was really great. I also love Adam Grant. Adam Grant, I think, also has a really lighthearted way of communicating that really invites you to listen to him. He's very, very intelligent and does tons of research and has lots of data to share, but he doesn't do it in an academic, I'm a know-it-all kind of way. He runs things like a conversation. So I really enjoy him. And so here's what's funny. I think you think I'm going to say Sean Aker, and I'm not going to say Sean Aker. Um, I actually love Sean Aker's work, but as a speaker, he stresses me out because he talks way too fast.
Mm,
And I've actually seen a few of his videos where I think the poor man's going to pass out because he hasn't
yeah.
taken a breath in so long that I almost sometimes lose his message because he's speaking so fast that like you're like breathe bro breathe, like you get really nervous. I get nervous for his well-being. But I love what he says. I really prefer reading his books than listening to him speak. But he does have, like, again, one of my favorite TED Talks is his. But as a speaker, he's not my favorite, just because his pace is too much for me. But I will say my last one to round up my top five. I'm gonna go with Simon Sinek. Um, I love his work as well, and I think that he's a really great speaker and he communicates well and he engages you well. So those would be my favorites.
Very cool. So with my top five, two of my top five are your top five. So Simon Sinek, and
Yeah.
I didn't want to like Simon Sinek. When I just to start with why video that every trainer has in their arsenal. I
Yeah.
didn't want to like him. I thought he might have been contrived, that it was formulaic, but every video that I see is different. And a lot of them are just extemporaneous, just off the cuff conversations that he has on stage, like town hall type of sessions, where it's just whenever he speaks, he's hitting on all my feel points. He's hitting me all the
Yeah.
fits, right? And so I'm not in my head. And I'm like, right. So he has not he has not disappointed me yet in the conversations that he has and that I've heard him speak about. So I gotta say I really do dig it. And I heard him speak off the cuff on a podcast. I can't remember whose podcast it was, but I think it was On Purpose. No, it was another podcast with a neuroscientist, and he was completely human. So I was like, oh, good. He's not an AI bot come to destroy us, right? So
Right.
him, Brene is amazing. That's the homie, right?
Yeah.
And I always catch wisdom from her as much as I can, and a lot of truth that a lot of people aren't comfortable saying, right? So I really do
Yes.
dig that. Um, I love listening to Michelle Obama, and
Oh, her too. Yes.
she is
Love her too.
such a compelling speaker, and her delivery, her confidence, and you can hear her passion when you hear just her voice kind of cracks just a little bit when she's talking about something she's excited about. I mean, that just whenever I hear that, just an inflection in her voice, I raise up, right? And that's I want people don't care what you do; they care why you do it. That's a Simon Sinek one, right? So,
Yeah.
um, and also Jay Shetty. Have you heard of Jay Shetty?
Mm-mm.
So he has a podcast called On Purpose, and he has a lot of folks on there. But he's a former monk, a former Buddhist monk who was in a monastery, and he has come out and wrote a couple books um, on just reflections and he's got um, a lot of wisdom. He's really good with interviews, but he's also very good on his one uh, conversations. Whenever my wife and I are driving and something is with just him speaking, I'll put it on and I she just will be nodding her head. I'm just like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm feeling it too. And I think a lot of it is his voice, right? I hear people say, "Wow, you have such a nice voice that's pleasant to hear," and I listen to him and I say the same thing. Wow, you have such a nice voice. It's so pleasant to hear. It's just very, very melodic in that
Mhm.
sense. So I dig him. And then last but not least, you talk about Lorraine Fox as one of your influences. I think I've mentioned it before, but Captain John Parker is one of the reasons that I am in this business. Just seeing him do his thing. He was the first presenter and instructor that I saw that brought the level of energy and passion that I was in awe of. And I said, how do I do that? How do I get to be
Mhm.
like that? How do I work on that to become like that? And we become friends since then. And he's definitely someone that I've always looked towards in terms of especially keynote presentations and being able to put yourself out there as an authentic person with a purpose and with an idea of how you want to show up. And he's definitely he has a purpose. You know, he's also a pastor, but you don't always feel like he's preaching. It's just such a, you know, he has such an amazing presence. He's his authentic self, even when he's being, flamboyant and out there. So, props to you, Pastor John, Captain John. I'll give you a R. He's the pirate guy. Love him to death. So, hey, we're coming up on World Pirate Day next month.
Oh, all right.
Yeah,
Interesting.
our World Talk Like a Pirate Day, right? September, I think it's 18th, right? So maybe we'll podcast that
I'll
day.
take your word for it.
Okay. All right. Well, you
We're
know,
not. I'm not talking like a pirate. I'm just gonna let you be disappointed ahead of time. I'm not doing. I don't do voices. Sorry,
all right,
Carl.
Mickey, we're gonna make you walk the plank. So yeah.
I'll walk the plank and I'll drown before I talk like a pirate.
All right. Well, so any
Pirates.
any uh any tips as we go forward?
I will say, if you're really looking to get into public speaking or you have an opportunity, I'm going to just steal the words of Nike and say, just do it. I think it's one of those things that the only way like you start to get comfortable with it and that you overcome your fear is just by doing it. And you have a gift to share with other people, whoever you are. Everybody has some unique thing about them that I think the world deserves to experience. And so, if it is something that you're interested in, start small, just practice, find your style. I will say I probably did public speaking for about 10 years before I actually got good at it. And so it's a process. And there's no one right way to do it. The right way to do it is the way that works for you. Carl's a planner. I'm a cuffer. I do it off the cuff. If I plan too much, I'm not going to say what I want to say. That would never probably work for him. So the way that works for you is the right way. And I will also say that if you're not nervous, you probably don't care enough. Like it's very, 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 very normal to feel a little off center right before you get in front of a crowd. But I can speak from my own experience that I have done all of the things wrong repetitively and survived every single one. So you can show up with the wrong shoes. That same day, by the way, that I showed up late with the wrong shoes on, I also had my shirt inside out, didn't know it. For half the day, I walked around with my freaking shirt inside out. So, and it was still fine. Um, so just get out of your own head and just know you've got something to share and just share it. And if you decide that public speaking is not your thing, then don't do it. Don't do it. If it's not something you have to do and you just don't like, I don't like snakes and I don't really have to learn how to handle snakes. And so I'm not like really pushing myself to learn how because I don't want to and I don't have to. So so if you don't have to and you don't want to, then don't leave it to us suckers that got, found our way into it. We'll do it for you. Trust and believe. It's not for everybody and that's okay. But if you do have to do it or you got something to say, find a way. It's doable. And
And
you can always get a coach to help you. So
and just know this. The people that matter, the people that you're really trying to reach, they're pulling for you. Most people want to
yeah,
see you succeed. And if those
for sure.
people are looking for you to fail, those haters, those are usually the people that aren't going to bring any value to your life. Those
Right.
folks, most people want to see you succeed and do well until you do too well,
Right.
and then they'll hate on you. But that's how you know you're doing well. Right? So
Right.
as long as you're going up, you're doing okay. Once you get there, then that's when they're going to be trying, like, hey, come back in the barrel, crab. Right. So, but for the most part, people want to see you succeed and believe in that.
Right.
All right. Well,
Absolutely. And be confident in your message, right? Be genuine in your message. I wouldn't take any public speaking. I wouldn't say yes to anything that I didn't believe in. So I'm not a mouthpiece. I'm not something that will go and try to make the case for something that's not important to me. I only say yes to the things that I genuinely care about and that I want to spread that message. And so um, that's something I also will say. Like, don't just repeat talking points. Like, if you're going to be a really genuinely good public speaker that people want to listen to, you have to believe what you're selling. And if you don't, then go go join a pyramid scheme. Go sell Tupperware or uh, you know, what I don't even know what they have. Mary Kay. What's the one? What's the
America.
nutrition one? Primerica. Yeah, there's a
Oh,
nutrition one too.
I was going to say Neutrogena.
Neutrogena. That's not it.
Yeah.
But
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 Nutria
join a
something
pet.
there. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, join a yeah. Herbalife. That's what I was gonna say. Herbalife. So go
Yeah.
if you want to get good at it, but you don't really care about it, by all means, join a pyramid scheme. But if you're really interested in pursuing it, like find what you care about and talk about it. And before you know it, people will invite you to share that message. That's all you can do.
Yeah. Find your voice. Find your
And
voice.
sometimes
Find
they
your
charge you
authentic
money.
voice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
And
sometimes
sometimes
and sometimes
they
they
pay
charge
you.
you money.
Yeah.
Sometimes
All
you gotta
right.
pay. Sometimes you gotta pay to share your message.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But then sometimes you get paid to share your message, which is nice as well. So,
That's true. Yeah, yeah.
and unfortunately, we're not getting paid to share our messages right now. So if anybody is interested in sponsoring us, please feel free to do so. But until that magical day happens,
Yes.
I'm Carl,
And I am Tiff,
and we are keeping it
and we kept it real.
real, real. We'll see y'all next month.
Oh my gosh, Carl.